When's the time to leave your job? When is that right time? Like, you think about it forever. You think, should I go today? Should I go tomorrow? Do I have enough money? Do I have another job lined up if I'm not yet financially independent? Well, it seems like increasingly at Tesla, the time to leave your job, right flipping now. Live from the apartment over Uncle Jack's garage while the basement's being renovated. Hey, Stackers, I'm Saul-Sehy, Average Joe Money on Twitter, and welcome to Money in the Morning. This is the show where we take not one, but two headlines, and not only do we read them like some podcasts do out there, but we go the extra mile. We even talk about what that means for your financial plan. What does it mean for your ability to earn, save, and spend money? And then, as if that's not enough, we take the two pieces and we combine them and leave you with something we call the big idea. Stack of Benjamin's brought to you by Tiller. You know, if you're somebody who likes to track your money, and I hope you like to track your money, Tiller's the way to do it, whether you like things easy like me or you like spreadsheets and graphs and lots of tabs on your money management system. Tiller's for you because it's based on Google Sheets or Excel spreadsheets. Don't let that scare you. If you're somebody that likes it easy, I'll talk about that a little bit later. Just head to stackingbenjamins.com/tour and you'll find tour. Head there and you'll find out more about our live tour to Tiller, stackingbenjamins.com/Tiller, and you'll get more on that. I love doing these shows live. All right. We've got lots of headlines. You've got things to do. So Laura, why don't you get us started?
Here are today's Money in the Morning headlines.
First headline comes to us from MarketWatch. Seems that household net worth climbing. Congratulations. That includes you and me. If you're in the United States, this is a U.S. statistic. This is written by Steve Goldstein, DC Bureau Chief for MarketWatch. Steve writes, the numbers, household nonprofit net worth rose $2.19 trillion in the second quarter, the Federal Reserve announced last Thursday. By the way, you might be thinking, second quarter? Aren't we finishing the third quarter right now? The answer is yes. But if you think about this being a trailing statistic, it takes 3 months to get that data and then to make sure the data is right? Dot all the I's, cross all the T's, make sure the data is right. So a lot of second quarter stats coming out in the last month. And sometimes those then get adjusted again. And sometimes the market moves because of adjustments on stats that came out a long time ago. But anyway, that's why we're getting second quarter stuff here at the end of the third quarter. That number, that big $2.1 trillion, represents a seasonally adjusted annual rise of 2.1% to $106.93 trillion, driven in part by gains in the stock market as well as the value of real estate. So if you made money in the stock market, value of your house went up, got a nice gain. What happened is the economic cycle grows older, and as the real estate sector bemoans a lack of available homes that have driven up house prices, household net worth continues to gain. It's important to stress that the Fed report doesn't represent the experience for the typical household. This is a report about the aggregate. A separate Fed survey from 2016 showed a little more than half of all families own stocks, while about 2/3 of households owned homes. Meanwhile, domestic non-financial debt rose 4.6% as business debt also grew by 4.6% and federal government debt jumped by 6.9%. Household debt grew a more modest 2.9%, while state and local government debt actually fell, falling 0.4%. The cash that corporations are holding on their balance sheet dipped slightly to $4.35 trillion from $4.38 trillion. The Fed also changed its definition of liquid assets to include the value of company stocks and mutual funds that they hold, a revision that added $2.17 trillion to the total, a notable shift as companies continue to purchase their own stock. As the Fed boosts interest rates, companies are getting more exposed to the short end of the curve. The ratio of short-term debt to the total reached 30.1% from 27.9% in the first quarter, and the highest level since the third quarter 2009. One way of measuring stock market valuation, the ratio of equities to corporate net worth rose to 116.44% from 115.08, more or less the same ratio it's held since the beginning of 2017. The big picture, the continued economic boom, it's bolstering the assets of America, particularly at the upper end of the distribution scale. At the same time, corporate America, and now the federal government, after the passage of tax cuts and spending hikes, are increasingly adding debt. Man, there's a lot to do here. Let's dive into some of these things. The first thing I want to talk about here is debt levels rising. People grew their debt by 4.6%. That's not a phenomenal number. But you'll also notice that debt ratios are increasingly moving towards shorter-term debt, meaning people are looking at short-term debt today versus running debt out for long periods of time. Companies are doing that too. Why is that? What does that mean? This is actually an important thing. As interest rates get longer, get higher, what happens to debt? Well, people, to try to counteract paying less money to the man, right? I don't want to pay more money to the man as I watch interest rates go up. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get debt that has a lower interest rate. So that means we're moving from long-term debt to shorter-term debt because shorter-term debt generally has a lower interest rate. Why is that, Joe? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Let's say that I'm loaning money to somebody. Say I'm loaning money to Sandy, my friend Sandy from Yes, I Am Cheap, who's hanging out with us here this morning. And I'm loaning money to Sandy. Better yet, probably Sandy's loaning money to me. Let's be realistic here. Sandy has a stock portfolio that just has gone crazy. But Sandy's loaning me some cash. And when she loans me money, she loans it to me for 6 months. There's a good degree of certainty that I'm probably doing the same thing 6 months from now that I'm doing today. Or it's going to be pretty close. So the chance of me getting money back or her getting money back from me if she loans money to me is pretty good. She can look at the indicators of who I am today, and there's a good indication that I'm going to be that now. But imagine a mortgage where I'm a bank and I'm looking at 30 years from now. You kidding me? Do you know where you're going to be 30 years? The bank has no idea what you're going to be like 30 years from now. So the interest rate on a 30-year debt is going to be a lot higher than the interest rate on a 6-month debt. And so they call that the yield curve. And then the yield curve sometimes is more flat. Sometimes it is more robust. But what's happening right now, don't want to get too much into the yield curve. That's a whole different lesson, kids. For today, what I want to talk about is this. Companies and people are shortening their debt, and it's so they can pay less money to the man. And here's the problem. As that debt number continues to rise, we're at 4.6% now. People rose their debt in the second quarter, took on 4.6% more debt over debt they already had. Your opportunity to keep that interest rate getting lower and lower becomes zero. And then you have to pay more money to the man. And when that hits, I'll be interested to see what happens to the economy. It's going to be difficult. Everybody says it's coming. Do we know when it's coming? Nope. Do we know what the stock market's going to do? Nope. We have no idea. But we do know that ability to keep refinancing your debt is going to get less and less and less. It's going to be tough. So that is point number one. Point number two from this piece, which is also important here, is that if we dive back into here, I wanted to talk about something else, and that is the companies buying their stock back. Why do companies buy their stock back? When you buy your own stock and you hold more of your stock, you can then resell that stock later. So just like the Fed raises interest rates so that they can lower them later when economic times get worse, companies do the same thing. They buy their stock back so that they can take advantage of this stuff. The reason why companies companies do this is because of the fact that they're paying attention to these quarterly numbers. And I think that's the biggest takeaway here. When it comes to your net worth, what are your quarterly statistics? Are you paying attention to your quarterly numbers? And if you're not paying attention to your quarterly numbers, How come? It's funny. I was talking to somebody just yesterday, and they were quoting all of these household numbers the average person doesn't know. They don't know their debt to income ratio. A lot of people don't even know how much tax they pay. They have no idea how much money they save every month, what percentage of the money that they make that they save every month. And look at these statistics and how many companies make decisions based on these statistics. And I think it's so cool once you keep these statistics. Sharon Lechter, the co-author, much lesser known co-author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad than Robert Kiyosaki, said to me once, she said, getting into the numbers is fantastic because numbers tell a story. Numbers tell a phenomenal story about where you've been and hopefully help you make better decisions about where you're headed. That's our first headline today. Let's say hi to everybody hanging out with us. Sandy said she wishes, I hope that means she wishes she's going to loan me money at a low interest rate. I think she's saying she wishes she had a phenomenal stock portfolio, but we know Sandy. I love, number one, I love teasing Sandy, but number two is I absolutely love talking with Sandy about her stocks. I think, Sandy, you made like a great, what was it? Was it MasterCard or Visa that you bought and things went really well? Good stuff there. Kevin says, for me, it was being disrespected by not getting paid what I was worth. Presented my accomplishments, was told throughout the year I was looking good until year end. Oh, Kevin, we're going to get to that here in a second. Kevin's talking about my lead-in there. Yes. Let's talk about when's the right time to move from your job. Chris chimes in. Chris says, assets are increasing in value, but I'm concerned with student loans and credit cards, which debts really are discretionary. Every quarter they're skyrocketing and lenders are sending out insane offers right now. It is insane. And the bad news is every student loan guru that I know, everybody from Adam Carroll, Pam Andrews, just person after person tells me this student loan debt crisis, there's still no easy answer there. It's going to be tough. Chris also says everybody's moved to the monthly payment mentality. I agree that. Kevin says plus opportunity cost on long-term debt. Kevin, are you talking about opportunity cost by taking out that money and taking it and doing something else with it? Because generally when interest rates are low, that's fantastic. But as the long-term debt gets more unaffordable, gets tougher, then we all move to short-term, and because the opportunity cost isn't there anymore. So maybe that's what Kevin's talking about. Opportunity cost is going away on the long-term debt. Can't take that money out and do something else with it. Jason's here. Hey, Jason. Jason says, talk's cheap. Couldn't the Fed lower rates even though they said they'd raise them? Until they've actually been raised, nobody knows what they'll do for sure. If economy changes direction, the Fed could easily reverse course. No, absolutely, Jason. And that's what they're doing right now. They're loading the gun because the economic indicators like this one are showing currently a pretty healthy economy, and Americans are doing okay in general with the economy the way it is. So they load the gun now so that they have somewhere to move later. Here's the problem they don't want to run into. Japan in the 1990s had a huge problem. And the problem was they'd already lowered interest rates to zero effectively. And then when things got really bad, the Japanese Federal Reserve could do nothing. Their version of the Federal Reserve couldn't do anything. So the 90s were horrible, absolutely horrible for Japanese stocks because of the fact that their Fed pulled the trigger too soon. So the Fed raising interest rates, probably going to continue. So they give themselves more that they can do between now and then. It's going to be interesting to watch. But I remember Federal Reserves around the world learned an absolute ton from really what a lot of people see as a mistake that the Japanese Fed made in the 90s. Victor says tracking net worth has been best, doubled our net worth this year. Easy when you start at net worth of zero about 2 years ago. Yeah, but to your point though, Victor, isn't it fun? Tracking this stuff is so fun. It's like watching the baby grow, from zero to a great net worth. That's fantastic. Good stuff there. Let's move on to our second headline, which comes to us from, and it's funny because I had it right here and now I don't have it. Second headline comes to us from Investopedia. Tesla loses yet another senior executive, says a report. The exodus of senior executives from Tesla is showing little signs of slowing down. Bloomberg, citing people familiar with the matter, reported that Liam O'Connor, vice president of global supply management, has become the latest high-profile figure within the company to hand in his resignation. O'Connor, who joined the electric car maker in March 2015 from Apple, is the fifth senior executive to leave Tesla over the past few weeks. Other recently confirmed departures include Chief Accounting Officer Dave Morton, Head of HR Gabriel Toledano, Vice President of Communications Sarah O'Brien, and the company's Vice President of Worldwide Finance and Operations Justin McAnear. A recent spate of high-profile exits brings the total tally of executives who have left Tesla in 2018 to more than 42, CNBC reported, citing a tracker compiled by Tesla short seller Jim Chanos. According to Chanos' list, 59 people left the company in the last 12 months, and at least 9% of the staff were laid off in June, the same month that 13 executives reportedly resigned from the company. Tough stuff. The piece goes on. Seems like tough times right now at Tesla. And Than is here. Hey, Than. Than says, but the cars are so cool. Absolutely. And you know what? I didn't really care that much about Tesla cars until I rode one. And once I rode in one, I thought, how do I get one of these? It was pretty awesome. I bought the hype. I totally bought the hype. But let's talk about your career. And actually, let's talk also about your stock portfolio. Watching executives and watching executive behavior can give you a great idea as to what's going on at that company. We talked the other day about benefits and about benefit packages. And if the benefit package is pretty good, 401k as an example is a pretty good 401k. Statistics show, and once again, correlation is not causation, but statistics show that more people want to go work for that company. People stay longer working at that company. The company performs better, puts out better stuff, even though they're spending more money on benefits. Companies that go cheap on benefits, ostensibly so they can pass on more value to the customer, ends up passing on less value to the customer. Now, once again, correlation, maybe not causation, but sure feels like causation, doesn't it? Here, when we look at executives, I think it's the same thing. If a bunch of executives are jumping ship and there's executive turnover, at the very best, what you have is a bunch of new people in brand new roles making huge changes at the company. Been at a company that's done that before? It's not that fun. New executive comes in, new expectations, new ideas. All of a sudden, what was normal on day one is something new on day two. Now, don't get me wrong. Change happens, and it's the one constant that we have. But if I'm going to a new job and there's a bunch of new executives, I'm first of all looking at a bunch of change. But the second thing is there might be something more systemic going on. And I'm not at Tesla. I got no idea what's going on at Tesla. I know that Elon Musk had some fun smoking pot on a podcast. That was interesting. I know he tweets a lot. That's also interesting. But when it comes to the company, you know, those are just tea leaves. I'll tell you how else it's tea leaves. Insider trading and insider activity is important to follow if you're going to invest in an individual stock. Now, people hear insider trading and they think that means that the stock is or that's illegal, right? There are things insider trading that are illegal, but there's also things that are very legal, and you can follow insiders to make better stock trades. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you can go to places like CNBC or Yahoo Finance. You can look up your favorite stock. You can click on a button that shows insider trading, and you can see if executives have been buying or selling, because to stay compliant with insider trading rules, they have to make those trades public. And it's a great way to get a feel of the heartbeat of the company. Now, this isn't a heartbeat. Sometimes it's not what you think it is. People trade stocks for bunches of reasons. When I worked with executives at companies and we had to adhere to these rules, what we would do would be to set up an automatic trade out. Like we dollar cost average out of their company stock. That did two things. Number one, it was a smarter way to get out of a huge position of stock. But also number two, it was a way to tell people in insider trading that this is just a financial planning move to diversify some of my position. It's not any feeling about the company. So these program once a quarter, beginning of every quarter trades, good for everybody. We do that. So look out for those. If you see a big trade by an executive, see if they had the same one the quarter before, the year before. If they do it at the same time, there's a financial planner in the background helping them, or a CPA helping them. So look out for that. But trading is something that's public when it comes to executives, and I love looking at that while I'm examining lots of stuff about an individual stock. Good stuff. Let's say hi again to everybody hanging out with us on Facebook. We got a chatty group today. Kevin says, as a bond investor, at what rate would it make sense to load up on long-term bonds when you're happy with the current yield after deducting a reasonable rate for inflation? Here's the thing. When the Fed stops moving, Kevin, that's the time that you see the yield curve gets more stable. And now we know that bonds aren't going to fall. So there's this teeter-totter. The teeter-totter in bonds is interest rate. Everybody thinks that stocks go up, bonds go down. That's not true. It's bonds go down when interest rates go up, and bonds go up when interest rates go down. So when we get into a market where interest rates are at least stable, then you can hold on to bonds. And then as interest rates drop, the value of those bonds will go up even more at that point. Karen's here. She says she stays for the great healthcare coverage. I think that's the reason. That's huge. Man, healthcare costs through the roof. That's easily, for a lot of people, the number one a way to stay. In fact, I know people that the reason that they work at a company still part-time is because they offer healthcare. Can't overlook healthcare. Chris says Tesla executives don't need that executive job. They treat it like a commodity. I'll just get another one, which is the opposite of the ordinary person. Still, it implies a cultural issue is involved, or other companies are poaching their staff aggressively. You know what, Chris? That's true. The thing to look out, and now, by the way, executives may need that job too, but executives are only as good as their resume. And if they think the resume is going to start to look bad, the next job's going to be tougher to get. So I got to get out while my resume still looks good. I want to be able to say I was there before the bad stuff happened. Remember those great days at Tesla? I was there during that time. And maybe they moved on for a lot of different reasons, but that's a lot of executives moving at one time. Pam, the scholarship shark, is here with us today. Pam says, great advice on finding out what executives are doing in their companies. I think it's just a key indicator if you've got individual stocks. And Pam works with kids, helping them get, well, not even kids, works with adults on helping them find scholarships. But a way to teach children about money, besides helping them get scholarships, is to buy a couple individual stocks and track those companies and track the executives. It's fun. It's educational. It's a really good time and a great start on learning how to track your numbers, going back to the first piece, which, by the way, we're going to do here in just a second with our big idea segment. But before we get to that, I have to talk just for a second about Tiller, not just because Tiller is sponsoring this particular episode of Money in the Morning, but also because it's a fantastic way to track your numbers. And if you're somebody that's not tracking your numbers, Tiller is a great place to start. And if you're somebody that is and you're not happy with the current app that you're using, the program that you're using, maybe there's too many bells and whistles, maybe there's not enough bells and whistles, Tiller is a great answer because of the fact Tiller is whatever you want it to be. And what I mean by that is Mom likes Tiller because of the fact that it's based on Google Sheets or on an Excel spreadsheet, whichever one you choose. You decide the platform, you set up the budget, and then Tiller automatically helps you download all of your transactions from all of your different places where you have money or you make transactions, all effectively, easily, and securely to that spreadsheet whenever you'd like. That's the great thing about Tiller. And the cool thing is, if you're somebody like me that doesn't want it complicated, I can use a Tiller template to put together everything. In fact, you can get everything from a really complicated template to a very, very simple template. And then, because it's either a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet, this is what I really like. I can simplify it even more, or I can change it. I can do whatever I want, because of the fact that it's based on a spreadsheet. Easy as you want, tough as you want. Tiller's there. StackyBenjamins.com/Tiller. If you use that, that's the way, by the way, that Tiller helps the show, is that if you use our link, they send us a little thank you for sending you their way. So thanks to everybody who's used our link when you've tried out Tiller. and I absolutely love it. All right, time for the plan. Part of this show we call the big idea. It's where we take these two pieces and we put them together with a big aha. And that's this. When it comes to your financial plan, looking back on these two pieces, I love this idea in the first piece of getting your numbers together. And I love the second piece about looking at what executives do. And when it comes to a financial plan, we generally look at just one area, but there really are three. Some people like to track their net worth. Like Victor talked about earlier in the comments, Victor likes tracking, watching that net worth go up. And there's a ton you can learn from that. And by the way, if your net worth doesn't go up, you're never going to become financially independent. So there's that too. So tracking your net worth, huge. You can learn a lot. Taking your assets and dividing them to make sure that your asset allocation fits your goals, can learn a lot there too. That's also a piece of your net worth puzzle. Looking at your debt and how it's structured, that's a big piece of the puzzle. Shortening those debts now, right? As interest rates go up on long-term debt, shortening them can be a big piece. You can't do that unless you track your net worth. Big stuff there. But there's also expenses. And some people default just to expenses. Let's see what we can cut. Can I cut? Can I cut? Can I cut? And I love this phrase, you can't shrink your way to greatness. Shrinking is fine if you're not using stuff, but you can't shrink your way to greatness. To get great means you have to track the third part, which is to track your income. And like these executives leading one company because they don't think they're going to make as much income there, moving to another company or moving for their resume to make more money, tracking your income and making your income better is a huge third part also. Income high, expenses low, transfer that money to your net worth, diversify it according to your goals, track your quarterly numbers. That's how we combine these two pieces today. Thanks for hanging out today, everybody. Everybody on Facebook, thanks for hanging out. Everybody back home, listening to this podcast, go stack some Benjamins. We'll see you next time back here at Money in the Morning.
Money in the Morning is created by Saul-Sehy and comes to your ears because of the collective genius of our producer, Rutter-Reese, engineer, Caden Thompson, and a pack of very well-trained ferrets here in the basement. You'll find links to all of our headlines featured on today's show in Joe's Twitter feed at @AverageJoeMoney. I know you already know this too, but Money in the Morning is for entertainment purposes only. You shouldn't act on anything recommended by a bunch of entertainers in a basement without first consulting with your financial advisor and second, having your head examined. Have a headline you'd like us to discuss? Send them to Joe at StackingBenjamins.com or put them on our Stacking Benjamins Basement closed Facebook group. This show is copyright 2018 Stacking Benjamins LLC, all rights reserved. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor Doug, and I reserve the right to always say, we'll see you next time back here on Money in the Morning.